There is, however, in the history of everything, that I somehow recognize the protocol uncle, not that much British, but actually Palestinian aligned. That is that branch which is associating via Macedonia and Macedonian imperialism in some kind of closer to central ground, as I have said, how in history of everything things would be connecting on such playgrounds, would be merging actually what we would recognize as a hardcore, but by a stamp, fascism and Nazism and fascism in the way how it will emerge in Germany and will nicely slide into Spain and South American adventure. But you see, there is here some kind of compliance, and that compliance is what it would be recognized as a Macedonian imperial platform. Which does have, I wouldn't say yellow as much as that would be mega protocol, and that is what Steve Bannon delivers as imagery. You say the leather jacket. Now that is very typical to leather jacket that would be very famous within a Russian army, in liberation army. And what I would find in, for example, in my family with my mother's side uncles, both of the uncles, one died 25 age, very much Russian-like, leather jacket, motorbike imagery. My second uncle, also very much leather platform. He bought me my first leather coat, my uncle. I was, oh my God, wow. But it was, that's from where uncle is happening in England. And it is, I'm just surprised how famous my family is, or coinciding with my family charting, where the secret becomes obviously about real Sanct Royal, real bloodline, which continue to be kept secret by Israel, and as a puppet to Western politics. Now here I'm going to find, therefore, leather jacket in category of, let's call that, I wouldn't call it rotten children or bastards. I would call that straight boys, in format of straight boys. So what is uncle here is actually that profile that Steve Bannon is pulling out today. That is straight boys from where emerges fascism and Nazism, which is happening on the foundations of hardcore center of Macedonian imperialism. That is central bloodline of Macedonian imperialism. But still driven as street boys, still driven as outlanders with the empire that find its, or is ambitious to find its headquarters somewhere else. And that somewhere else is, of course, a Western centerpiece, Western platform as a West prevailing and topping up the entire planet. But using very much in all of this time, mostly Macedonian imperialism as a street boys. That's leather jacket, that's fascism, that's Nazism, and that is how it was played in last century as well. Used and then thrown away. And that level of devastation happening all over Europe. And that is why today I'm going to say loudly and strongly, America is indebted to Europe to the end of the times. But that's not first statement. First statement is America is one of the wings of European imperialism, or should I say ancient Macedonian imperialism, because if someone was holding that stamp for 2 millenniums, then it is time that we actually properly declare it as its own headquarter, because the head is where is the body. Head cannot be where the body is not. Ladies and gentlemen, my verdict for today: head will never be where the body is not. And with my performance today, that has not only been confirmed, that head would never be where is not a body. The body is Macedonian imperialism. I bring the headquarters there. I unite Spain and South America with the rest of the Europe. And I look at USA and that part of British Island, how I should look at them. And request a restriction from further development of that matrix that never was theirs to play. So Macedonia on board. We need to re-emerge out of this. We need to reincarnate out of this in the present times, where we recognized what are the issues and where we need to set the ground so we can start dealing with the issues as a progressive force of development, not as a street boys as troublemakers. Accordingly, Olymp today is more real than in any of the previous days or weeks or months. Olymp today emerged bigger than in any of the previous months. So entire region is accordingly on call. We are recalibrating on Macedonian imperialism as a matter of historic heritage of the territories, within the central platform being political philosophy and political amphitheaters of political philosophy, as a headquarter of that empire 21st century approach. Accordingly, movement for peace, returning to energy of woman, re-emerging from energy of the father, where Macedonians have been treated as bastards. I have son, and he is on first place to me, together with my daughter, of course, but my son is firstborn. He is also man. I cannot drive him in the shadows of Serbia. It happened to be also, I am the author of my work, so the matrix is with me. He is the firstborn son. Prevail on Macedonian side. I drive it like that. But you have to understand, guys, I'm reincarnating into political philosophy. And I recognize Olymp rather than Stonehenge as a headquarter of it. Transition will need to happen, and will need to happen on these lines. So, yeah, let's God and Goddess be with us. As much as in this case scenario Serbia is father rather than uncle, however, where is the uncle, there is the mother. We are on the level father-mother here, and Serbia is having strong presence, but I cannot give to Serbia more presence than to myself, because that would not make any sense, since the matrix of this entire conversation and the entire planetary assessment of the situation and dealing with the situation is my work. So I cannot give to Serbia more place than that can possibly make any sense. My uncle was first to be killed. Britain, you are not the uncle. The uncle is my uncle of Macedonia, Palestinian descent. The copy of his father is in New Zealand. Copy. Obviously totally westernized. But let's understand who is the real uncle here. He was killed first. I saw him in a dream coming with his grandchild towards our house, going towards our house with his first grandchild. And soon after I heard he died. It has something to do with New Zealand. It is dirty, disrespectful, and rotten. Yet rotten are not these kids that you have been treating like that in 2 millenniums. Rotten is yourself. There is plenty to reconcile. If you admit, as I have impression, New Zealand and Western societies, that is the prime societies, admit that it has been overdone, they have been driving obviously on the previous, there is no much to be excused. But for the sake of the future of our kids, I call for reconciliation, not for forgiveness, but for reconciliation. The irony to be bigger, I have been working as a reconciliation officer, in my latest job. It just sounds. Well, clearly I learned, I know how to reconcile things, or I am the one positioned as such that can and should reconcile things, holding the matrix of the entire situation. It might be that they really tried to find the best person for the job that's going to have certain Western substance, so they will be looked after rather than diminished. And there we are. Iron Mask is. Yet the justice will need to happen. Accordingly, we are to reconcile. We are not going to go after blood. We will reconcile. I'm going to ask the parties that found themselves drawn into all of this to think that way. They need to reconcile both of the sides. All of the sides will need to reconcile first with me. As I have said, I'm attaching my work to Castle of England and Castle, which is Castle of England, which is Castle of Britannia today, obviously, and Castle of Spain. And these are the ones now to make their moves and to allow this to take place. All of the parties will need to reconcile first with me, including my relatives, and including my uncles, if they're still alive in some form or shape, and my grandfather, if he is still alive as he is in some form or shape. He will need to reconcile with me. No matter how far New Zealander he has become, my own grandfather is here with me in New Zealand, and I am afraid to even think of it, afraid of what I'm going to find there. But I make the call for reconciliation with my own grandfather included New Zealand. Notice how that was happening. You stealing our bodies and minds and souls. And my family right in the center of it. And I playing here Barbie lullaby, knowing nothing about it. You need to reconcile with me first. Technically, it comes that West Wing will need to reconcile with me. Not with Israel, with me. We are going to use Castle of Spain and Castle of England for that purpose. West Wing will need to reconcile with me. And at this stage, I technically get bricks behind my back. And we're all fine. Bricks become uncle itself. Because what else would be anyway? It is everything sums to my family. When everything sums to my family, that's bricks defined. To the extent that a part of the fact that I have awakened ancient Macedonia here and recognized it within my protocol uncle, it is still that we talk about uncle, where would be following Donald Trump to his best as well, which means it is relative to something that is more absolute. Let's pay attention to specifics here. Entire Macedonia happens as relative. Entire imperial Macedonia happens as relative to something more absolute. Equally as the entire history of Bible happens around the artifacts, which is Mother Mary and her kids. Here, which is, as I claim, rather imperial reference to clearly Queen and her kids. At that time would have been Queen Cleopatra accordingly. Entire Macedonian imperialism sums in all of the history accordingly to Queen. 2 millenniums she survived. I can certainly say that as a good news from my perspective. But that doesn't brings Donald Trump in charge or on top of the pyramid. In contrary, he continued to be Mason in transition. Yes, in transition. A reconciliation accordingly on the way. Or that story would mean nothing. So sons, I expect proper behavior, professional political behavior on the principal political stages of the empire. You do not have a right to blunt the stage. I expect top-level political performance and mutual respect. There is no need to someone to stand up from anyone else when someone has not earned that much to step up, actually. Unless it is in question my own son, which clearly doesn't happen as that much of a stage maker. I'm talking to principal political stages, which in this case scenario are complete administration to family, are therefore in service to the family. And that includes Donald Trump. As I understand, there are various billionaire families all over the Westlands. When it is time to declare the political family as well, a family that is also imperial, and therefore tops up any other entrepreneur on the planet. Artians, my verdict for today. Under our spell is the entire army, police, and entire political stage. This is above the money itself. This is about regulating events. And even if it comes to Stone Age, it is about the stones itself. It is the temples, which have been born in Stone Age, from where Iron Mask emerges in Legend of Excalibur, right there from Stone Age. Even if you bring all yourself today in that age, I am still topping you up. Now bring yourself in order, including billionaires, in order. Process of reconciliation will need to start. I expect Buckingham Palace and Monarchy of Spain to put themselves in full service to what will need to be done here. And to the empire, salute. On the technical matters, it will need to be understood that I cannot declare today empire of your criminal affairs and out of your criminal affairs, but only on the ground of genetics, on the ground of holding bringing certain renaissance level of overall civilizational development based on genetics. So I'm going to drive it very abstract on the ground of people that really have been driving civilization more like slaves to it rather than more like gearing on it or geared upon it or burned upon it rather than really the establishment that today claim the empire, although clearly they are not the one that have been driving, that have delivered the substance of that empire. So I'm reincarnating it on its substance, and I'm calling the wrongdoers on their knees. That's the best I can do. Accordingly, upon the genetics, and here I discuss currency upon the genetics, not upon stealing gold or acquiring gold as a physical measurement of what is rather intangible as currency of a nation should be. There is not much of playground you can declare today. But to apologize, yes, correct, to apologize for what you have done. And allow this process to take place on the ground of its own logic. When it comes to the situation in Palestine, if we highlight now that particular event, there is something that will need to be noticed in its very contradictory existence in 2 millenniums, and that is the fact that the entire region is very much today under prevailing influence and definition of Muslim population, which paradoxically translates into Muslim. Palestinians on the other side, as I am recognizing here the protocol that looks more like Steve Bannon actually, that kind of prototype, more lion kind of situation going on here. You would not find exactly Muslim reference most adequately used to categorize, to reflect on presence of such people in that region. And now that continues to be a problem, especially when starts moving all over Europe or even Spain, and happens to be more like identity question. We are closer to Martians than to planet Earth. We have to be very careful, therefore, what the corridor Palestine was used for. And was it so innocent and without any reason, that level of devastation that has happened in Palestine? After all, let's not underestimate the size of that intervention, and let's allow it a bit of a thinking. Would it be done just for simple racial intolerance, or it is something else behind it? There was testimony that it was all done because of the corridors, the tunnels that exist under the ground of these buildings, the tunnels that actually are very much connecting entire Middle East, obviously, within on some kind of tunnel level. And here, Iran or Babylon would not be visible how it moves on Mediterranean, as it looks like Babylon doesn't do anything. They're just sitting there silent. Well, actually, under the ground would be happening entire operation. Now, for what it is, if I'm going to reflect on my marriage and what my marriage was all about, and that is about extracting me into right to employment, right to dignity, integrity, appreciation, honor even, and all being done by walking on top of my existence. If that is how Babylon exists on this earth, and how Babylon walks on this earth, certainly using the underground channels, we might end up talking even about Martians here, that are using Alexander as their son for purposes of basically infiltrating the planet. So we would not be here in story of Alexander at all, or about Alexander, or about Macedonia at all, but it would be story about Babylon, Iran, Shia, Muslim, and what's beyond entire planet Mars. There is very good documentary going on YouTube that explained actually. We are talking when it is this kind of figures that are very tall and very slim are actually associated with planet Mars. And clearly they are using Protocol Alexander the Sun or Protocol Lion for their promotion and infiltration on the planet. After all, there is also and I'm afraid Serbia is attached to all of it. There is also pictured in the latest earlier records of that region a queen, or was king actually, a very tall, like 3 meters tall, holding lion and bull as they are some kind of poodles. So we are talking about that size of people. We are talking about very tall people, actually. And it is associated to Babylonians and to what it is recognized today as a Sunni or as a Shia. As one documentary was talking in that context about Mars as well, it might be that we talk here about another planet rather than another time. Because in that time, there would not be lion and bull of that size. So we talk about confronting of two different, if it is about our flora and fauna, that would be two different times. They would not collide. They happen subsequently. I mean, it would have been, in the time of giants, there would have been dinosaurs. And the man would look much more prime. It would not be looking that much as a human, exactly. Would look more as some kind of wild Homo sapiens in some kind of mega format. But that is not how exactly we see these skeletons are very much tall and clearly not that much robust, rather slim. So we are talking, it might be that we talk about completely different ecosystem. It might be we talk about different planet altogether. And it might be that we are talking about ongoing infiltration of some other planet on our own. That is how I'm going to see this entire Palestinian situation. And now to notice that 2,000 Palestinian prisoners being released. You can see these tall people among them being treated as some kind of stars, like they won some trophy or something. It's not something that can be or should be accepted so easily. Without a doubt and without further thinking, what was the real reason for devastation that took place in Palestine? And as much as we need to look now at people of this earth being used by different protocols, we should start thinking about various events and movements accordingly in relation of what would be the bigger picture happening on earth that would prevail over any other protocol in terms of not protocol as identity, but protocol, but something that would be taking place as a prevailing, ongoing situation that would have been there for a certain level of occupation or attempt to take over the planet. If that's the bigger picture we need to look at, then we have to understand these events accordingly. And we have to look at the people as being used, misused, manipulated, and things like that. As well It certainly is not going to justify killing of people, but it will assist us to understand the real reasons why certain events have been taking place. Of course, there is a third option here, that Muslim continue to be used as a goof for playing the ball by simply population that continue to be aspired by by some kind of mischievousness that would go further into sweet harassment, or basically enslaving characters of my kind that continue to be referred as oil, bank of the river, and whatever else is out there, atomic plant even, for using of energy, river, all being used for energy reasons. Basically, we are talking here about slavery, where all of the European countries for quite some time obviously have been plugging into and very much configured it in such way to, as I have said today, if I'm going to awaken that empire, it would be by the substance of it, not by the user account of it, and ownership over someone else. And it might be profound, but we have to do it because there is an enormous list of billionaires that are emerging out of such a very wrong setting. And we all then pay the price as a planet and as a humanity. This will need to be done. You cannot possibly continue to behave like that. And that Macedonian Empire that I need to confront here as Olymp, which is, by the way, outside of Macedonian Empire, for good, to be a reminder that I am close by, but not exactly in the fire circle out there. As I'm launching this work as a view from the above. And no, I have not said this to play holy genie to Ivanka Trump or alikes of billionaires called overspoiled genies from the bottle. Fake ones, of course. No, my intention is not to play genie mother to them. My intention is to just make them aware that I am here, and that I am not to engage myself of saving them, but of saving myself and what it is most important to me. And you all keep safe distance, or it will be else. My promise of goodwill ends where your goodwill ends as well. And there's going to be different kind of music. So it's last time that I'm going to hear quasi-Macedonians that you are going to threaten me with my kids. First and foremost, they're on Britannia, but today I am the Iron Mask of it, not Elon Musk. My Majesty is Iron Mask of Britannia as of today. So I was thinking, it's better if I just announce it. And you have on mind, as clearly as possible, what that is supposed to mean. Standard emerging, not genie for you in your service, for God's sake. Standard emerges again on this earth